Meeting of the Marquette City Commission is called to order at 6 p.m. on Monday, November 27, 2023. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Larson?
Here.
Commissioner Mayer?
Here.
Commissioner Ottaway?
Here.
Commissioner Slagle?
Here.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hanley?
Here.
And Mayor Davis.
Here. Commissioners, we have an agenda in front of us, and I'm looking for a motion for approval. Commissioner Larson,
Motion to approve the agenda as presented?
and a second. Commissioner Mayer.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. There's a couple things that are coming to Marquette as we enter the holiday season. First of all, there's a laser light show down at the Lower Harbor. It goes off of the Ore Dock, and this is sponsored by Travel Marquette. And it goes Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights from now until the end of the year. So thank you to Travel Marquette for doing that. We also have a holiday parade coming up on Friday, December 8th, and that parade will go from Fair Avenue down to the Marquette Commons. The post office will be picking up letters to Santa along the way, and at 7 o'clock we'll have a tree lighting ceremony, so join us for that event. And those are the announcements I have today. We have boards and committees, and we have some appointments.
Your Honor, we need an approval of the agenda.
Oh, I
please.
am so sorry. Rick got my announcements in there. This is why you have previous mayors around. We have a motion and a second on the agenda. Could we have all those in favor say aye?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, or yes. Those opposed?
Nope.
No. I thought I did do that motion. Okay.
I thought you did too.
Okay. Well, we will accept, and so we will move on to boards and committees. But
It's double approved.
I thought I had, but okay. Boards and committees. A motion, Pro Tem Hanley?
I move that we appoint Emily Tobin Lavoie to the Public Art Commission for an unexpired term ending 2/26/25. John Nebel to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board as the Marquette Junior Hockey Representative for an unexpired term ending 1/29/25. And I recommend that we recommend Assistant City Manager Sean Hobbins as the City of Marquette Representative on the Marquette County Transit Authority for a term ending 12/31/26, and recommend Fire Chief Ian Davis as the City of Marquette Representative on the Marquette County Central Dispatch Policy Board for a term ending 12/31/26.
Thank you. Second to this motion? Commissioner Schlegel? Okay. Thank you. Discussion?
Just thank you to all of you who are willing to step up and be on our boards and committees. These are the people that really help make the city run, and they're very important to us. And a special thank you to Sean Hobbins and Ian Davis for being willing to be recommended to positions on boards as well in excess of their regular job.
Commissioner Schlegel?
Ditto. Same thing.
Ditto. Anyone else? Okay. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, which brings us to the public comments. So comments may not exceed 3 minutes per person. Please state your name and physical address when making public comments. So public comments?
Sue Holliday, 2022 Cherry Street, Marquette. Dear Mayor Davis, Mayor Pro Tem Hanley, City Commissioners, City Manager Kovacs, and City staff. Hooked on Voting was started by the Marquette County League of Women Voters several years ago. The Hooked on Voting program aims to encourage children from preschool to middle school to become engaged in the democratic process by voting on a project to improve their own neighborhoods. Programs were held at the Peter White Public Library in the UP Children's Museum. We would like to recognize all the kids who voted in these elections. The League of Women Voters Marquette County donated books to the school libraries of the winners of the book drawings. We also invited future voters and their families to attend tonight's meeting as we present the results of the September Hooked on Voting elections. There were 4 projects on the ballot selected by the League of Women Voter members based on input from the kids. Pick up litter along the road or sidewalk, plant flowers along the curb, put up free little libraries, put out more containers for dog owners' poop bags. The winner of the election for the second year in a row was pick up litter along the road or sidewalk. The first runner-up was put out those containers for dog owners to dispose their puppies' poop bags. We also asked the kids to write down any other requests or concerns they wanted the City Commission to know about. These fish stickers are presented to the Mayor Davis tonight, along with a copy of this letter. To help make this lesson in democracy real for these future voters, we think it is vital for them to see the impact of their action. Therefore, we plan to present a resolution to the City Commission down the road inviting elementary school classes, their families, and/or their neighborhoods to adopt a block as a way to maintain or spruce up their neighborhoods. It would be our hope that the kids would come up with names for their block projects, share a photo, or write letters to the newspaper. On behalf of all of the city kids and the League of Women Voters of Marquette, thank you for helping make Marquette someplace special for everyone.
You need to bring that over to the city clerk, please. Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Andy Tanka, 2005 Jenny Lane. My retaining wall is on the agenda tonight. I'd like to say I'm sorry for the misunderstanding on the right-of-way. I did not intentionally make it that close. I thought it was 17 feet because of an original permit I received in 2019 when I first put the driveway in on that lot. I built a garage in 2022, and because of this, the driveway was too low and it needed to be higher because of this. I live on a hill, and so it changed elevations. A normal right-of-way is 5 to 13 feet. Mine, for some reason, I've gotten stuck with one that's 21 feet. I've yet to find one larger in the city. That's including Wright Street and Washington Street, and I live on a dead end. There's a section about 12 feet long across that ended up being about 14 feet close to the road. When the contractor made the corner from my 17 feet, when the stack blocks apart, they ended up bending out farther, so that ended up being, but it is only 12 feet long right there. Let's see. He didn't take that into account. I'm not asking the city to bear any expense in this wall. I will put the title of, in the title, I will put that if I ever sell the home, any excavation on that wall is the homeowner's responsibility if the city needs to dig there. The city has allowed for the birdhouse condos and other buildings, especially along Lakeshore Boulevard, these variances. The big difference is I don't have a water main underneath my wall, which breaks all the time. All utilities in front of my wall, with the sewer being the closest, but it's only 4.5 feet down. It's been checked, so it literally could be excavated without the wall being any factor whatsoever. And it's made of PVC, which doesn't break. So even if that was an issue, you would zip line it. So it's a non-issue basically is what I'm trying to say on that. I've hand exposed the power and the gas line. They're all closer to the road. They're only 2 feet down. The wall has no factor. Both the city engineering and DPW have approved it. So the only one that hasn't is the zoning, which I understand the bylaws are all that. I'm just, I know multiple walls though that have been allowed after the fact. I mean, Fourth and College is one, for example, that's in the right of way. Past practice should be taken into account on this. There's no physical or site issue, and
Sorry, my apologies, I need to
Sorry.
stop you there as your time is up. Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Honorable Mayor and Commissioners, my name is Steve Mattson. I live at 2007 Jenny Lane, and I have done so for 35 years or so. I'm here to support the request of Andy Tonka for a license to use the city property for a retaining wall on Jenny Lane. Jenny Lane is westmost street in the Granite Heights subdivision. It is a small street. It contains 5 homes on Jenny Lane and 2 homes on Huntington, each with side yards adjacent to Jenny Lane. I believe everyone is in support of Mr. Tonka's request, with 5 providing letters of support, including Mr. Tonka's submission. Mr. Tonka has built a garage and new driveway on the parcel. Elevation levels decline from the garage to the road, making the use of a retaining wall his best option and more aesthetically appealing than a mound of dirt there. Unfortunately, to accomplish this, Mr. Tonka used a small unused portion of the city's right-of-way on Jenny Lane. Little background of the story of Jenny Lane might provide some insight into the situation. The city accepted the subdivision from the developer with some known issues, especially around Jenny Lane. Outlets were retained by the developer and sold to private individuals. Those outlots had a wide right-of-way that infringed on homeowners' yards. The developer was not required to fully pave Jenny Lane. The survey was off 10 feet, requiring the lot adjustments be made, and in this case, the right-of-way is extraordinarily large. The manholes for the sewer system are in the homeowners' yards rather than in the city streets, which is more the norm. The last issue has impacted Mr. Tonka. If the right-of-way wasn't so large, the retaining wall would be outside of it. We understand the city's position that this is a right-of-way and that they are looking out for the benefit of each of us residents. In this case, I believe an exception should be made. The right-of-way is extraordinarily wide. Per the sewer maintenance supervisor, the retaining wall will not impede the structural integrity of the sewer main. The neighbors from all prefer an attractive retaining wall over dirt hills subjected to erosion. Thank you for your consideration.
Anyone else for public comment?
Good evening. I'm Karen Mattson, and I live at 2007 Jenny Lane in Marquette, Michigan, and I'm Mr. Tonka's next door neighbor. I've lived there over 35 years as well. And you can talk to me afterwards about the horror stories of our neighborhood. I mean, I don't think the city should have ever accepted it the way they did. And our taxes pay the city administrators' salaries. And we expect them to take good care of the city. And we do respect how much effort and time it takes to make the rules, all the ordinances and zoning and everything. I know that's a lot of work. However, all these rules are based on an ideal scenario. And so there's the ideal and there's the real. Well, we all gotta live in the real. So I think, I would hope that the city would take that into consideration when about the request for the license. If our subdivision was indeed ideal and compliant, Mr. Tonka could keep the retaining wall. And instead, he was instructed to get this license, and where we all have that right, even if we're a city employee. And my husband and I were just taking a drive around South Marquette, and there's like so many retaining walls there, and they're all a lot closer to the road, and some of them aren't even very attractive, and you know, they probably are in private property instead of the right of way, but they sure look a lot closer to the road than Mr. Tonka's would be. And it's doubtful that there'll ever be any problem with Mr. Tonka's retaining wall, and he's a very responsible person who would be the first to address any issues. Thank you. And I just wanted to say that, by the way, the wall is next to a really beautiful home for sale. And wouldn't it be better to have a nice retaining wall there instead of weeds and dirt? Because when the home sells, then the city's going to get a lot more taxes. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment?
Hello, my name is William Cook. I live at 2007 Huntington Street. It's across the street from the property that is being requested today to be, I don't know if you want to call it rezoned or whatever, but it's really an improvement to our community in that small little area that we have, and I think it only affects 3 property owners. And my understanding is all 3 of us are in favor of what Mr. Tonka has been doing. And so we're here to support him and ask that the city grant him what he needs to have done. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment?
Margaret Brum, 404 East Magnetic Street. I have 3 items. One is a request that the City Commission and the city from here on out make it a point to post the agenda for the upcoming meetings. I know you post it now for the City Commission meeting and the Planning Commission meeting. I'm requesting that it be posted for all of the committees at least 48 hours in advance, so that people who might be interested in the subject matter of the committee will have an opportunity to review it and understand if they should attend a meeting or not. I'll give you a practical example of where this might have come in handy. This past summer, I happened to attend several meetings of the Harbor Advisory Committee, and I was surprised to learn during that meeting that there's an ongoing project in the Harbor Advisory Committee to revamp the harbor rules for both the upper and the lower harbor. And I thought that that was something, if I were a boat person or somebody who used the harbor, I would want to know that those rules were under review and that I would have a chance to have my own input now as opposed to having a document to review at the end. So I request that that be done electronically like it is for all the others, the City Commission and the Planning Commission. I did notice that 3 of the committees did have their minutes posted, which was pleasant to be able to review them. I'm also requesting at this time that the city make an effort to schedule the City Commission Presque Isle Committee joint meeting to discuss the walking hours for Presque Isle early in the first quarter of 2024, so that it's not an item that comes up the week the Island Road opens when there's not a lot of time and there's a lot of excitement. It's something that requires community input and time to consider the options. And I respectfully request that I used to call it work session, but now special meeting be scheduled in the wintertime, for want of a better phrase, when we have time to think about it. And then the third item is, I noticed on the agenda, there is a report of a successful labor negotiation, the DPW labor agreement. This will involve an additional expense to the city budget as reported of $152,000. It says it's an extra item and the budget will have to be adjusted. I would appreciate when that matter comes up, if someone could speak to if this is coming out of the general fund, and if so, what will be the balance in the general fund after this money is applied to this labor agreement. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. We have two presentations tonight. The first one is the Planning Commission by our chair, Sarah Middlefeld. And Sarah, you can step up to the podium.
Looks like it's on this screen. Do I need to do something to get it up there, or? I was going to say, it's already here. This is great to just, there we go. Well, good evening, thank you. Before I dive into our annual exciting Planning Commission report to the City Commission, it's a season of gratitude, so I just wanted to express my gratitude for everything you guys do. I know I've been serving on the Planning Commission since 2018, with pleasure, a couple of you serving with me then. And I don't think it's gotten easier to serve in these public roles in local government. So I really appreciate the thick skin it sometimes takes to serve and lead our community. So thank you all for everything you're doing. So let's begin. This is put together, I'm just the messenger here. Dave and the other Planning Commission chairs, we talked about this at our last meeting, so it's kind of a presentation by consensus, but I will be the messenger. Feel free to interrupt, or we can have questions at the end. Most of you, I think, are familiar with the duties of the Planning Commission. We are deeply involved in the Community Master Plan. We've been working with the consultants, as you know, as we've been involved in creating the Master Plan document. It should be coming out. I think we will be seeing it in January, a preliminary draft the consultants were presenting. And then we are very much in the weeds with the land development code. So once we have the vision of where we want to go with the Community Master Plan, it's a lot of the work we do on the Planning Commission is then figuring out what are the specific rules, regulations that help us meet the objectives in the big vision, right? We make recommendations, as you know, for you to consider and approve or not approve, you being the legislative body. And rezoning, we do a lot of rezoning requests and occasionally planned unit development. So again, this is nothing probably new to most of you, but some of you this might be kind of new information. So our job is really making sure once we have a code that we all can stand behind, the zoning code or the land development code, making sure new developments are in line with the code, the legally binding code. We review street construction projects, haven't seen many of those in the past year, and I'll get to what specifically we've done in the past year. And then make recommendations about the capital improvement plan. So a lot of big duties, a lot of the behind the scenes work. You guys are on the front lines and appreciate what you all do and really interacting with the public. We do usually when someone's, there's an issue with the way we've interpreted the code, that's usually when we interface with the public. But anyway, so history really quick. I literally just gave a talk this morning in my policy class on the history of zoning, so I will spare you the lecture on the history of zoning in the United States. But basically, before the middle of the 20th century, land development was really uncoordinated. It sort of happened in piecemeal fashion. You could have large, unregulated slaughterhouses, factories right next to residential areas. So the reason we have zoning and planning is to try to have a body, a civic, group that helps to make sure that we can look out for the public health and safety of the community in terms of land use. In Marquette, in the state of Michigan, planning board started in 1947. And again, our job is to prepare a citywide plan in the public interest. And so that is what we do. We have a really fantastic board. We have a full board. We have folks in their 20s and all the way up to their 80s. So we have a really nice, diverse range of age, range of professional experiences, people in construction and development. City engineer, Steve Laurie is just a gem. Many of you maybe had a pleasure to work with him. Every time I sit down and have a conversation, I feel like I learned so much about the history of our community, Just a really great, interesting group of people. So, yeah, what we've done in the past year here, this is what, you know, the rubber hits the road, this is what we've done. 9 site plan reviews, 7 special land use permit requests with public hearings, 3 rezoning issues, 1 planned unit development concept, 1 pretty significant set of amendments to the land development code. The code is kind of an ongoing iterative document, so we keep finding new things. Dave and I were just talking in our last meeting with the fellow commissioners about a whole new set of amendments to the land development code that we'll be sending to you probably fairly early in 2024 for approval. So it's always a learning opportunity. So next year, thinking forward, we are a planning commission, so we like to think about the potential future. So the community master plan, like I said, we'll be looking at a draft in January, and then there'll be a public hearing about the draft as well in January, I believe. You know, everybody in Marquette is very aware of the acute housing issue, and affordability. So that's something that's constantly on our radar, something that is woven throughout the community master plan. So we look forward to trying to tackle that with you all in various capacities. Mobility, there's been kind of attempts to work with MarkTran to try to improve our public transit. And Dave, this is something that he's spent a lot of time and energy really trying to put all the puzzle pieces together to make this thing work, try to create a more effective route. So that's something that we would like to continue to work on and have support from the City Commission on. I'll show the bike route map. We kind of identified as a planning commission some bike routes in addition to the 3rd Street corridor bike route. And we'll talk some comments about ways to improve cycling infrastructure in the city. And yeah, street reconstruction sidewalk fund that was removed from the capital improvement plan. We would like to see that reinstated. Obviously, our sidewalks, our basic street infrastructure is very fundamental to getting people around the community. One other thing that we wanted to highlight is Andrea and Dave are seeing a lot of people building without permits. They just didn't know that they needed to get a permit or they needed to do this and that with zoning. And we think this is kind of a problem. I don't know if it's public education effort or what needs to happen, but he's seen a notable increase in the number of people getting into unnecessary trouble. If they kind of could look at the code beforehand and know what the rules were, it's designed not to be onerous. It's supposed to be fairly user-friendly, but yet we see a lot of people going ahead without permits. So that's been kind of a little issue that we wanted to highlight. So yeah, master plan's coming out here early in 2024. Some of the things that we're really excited about is around climate action. The city passed a climate action resolution a couple years ago, and the consultant said, yeah, we're going to weave that throughout the plan, just like we're going to weave housing right through the plan, so it touches on different parts of the plan. So demographic change and transportation, all these different things will kind of touch on these 2 themes of climate and resiliency and housing. I guess those are 3 themes, but they're related. So I'm excited to see what the master plan says about that, and then from there, what can we do in our code to help address these big kind of looming issues, I guess, for our community. So yeah, so that's kind of a future phase. Again, the completion of the bike route plan, we would really like to see more action from the Department of Public Works on marking the lanes. Like I said, there was a bike route plan which was approved in 2019 or 2019, but there's been no efforts to paint the lines on the streets to indicate where cycling lanes have been designated and approved by the City Commission. So I believe there was even like a machine that was bought that can paint lines on streets, but Dave says that's a contracted service, so we can't just paint lines on the street ourselves. But anyway, that's something that we would like to see is simple, very simple, like cycling infrastructure, just like a designated bike lane on some of these bike routes that have been identified by the City Commission. Winter walkability, this is always a consistent issue, and our winter wonderland is just keeping them accessible, trying to get people out of their homes, walking to places downtown in the neighborhoods. Sidewalks are always a concern and always something that we're trying to improve, which is why we would like to see the capital improvement fund restored as soon as possible. Yeah, and public transportation, this is something that we've been trying to work with Mark Tran on, is establishing some kind of intracity transit route. There's been talk of public-private partnerships. There is a lot of money right now from DC for trying to improve public transit, and especially around the Inflation Reduction Act. There's some funding there. I don't know who, if the city commission could take a lead on that, or if there's a subcommittee, but there is a lot of money for this kind of thing out there. Here it is. Here's our adopted, 2018. This was adopted by the city commission. The planning commission made the recommendation. So we do have these bike routes, but other than the 3rd Street, which the lines on 3rd Street, I bike every day. I bike from Northern, where I work, to Graverette, where I pick up my kids. And there's no, the line on 3rd Street is pretty much gone. So if there was a way to just literally paint a line on 3rd Street, I think that would be a great first step. But beyond that, thinking about these other arteries that have been designated as bikeways, having signage to try to make both car drivers but also cyclists more aware that there are these arteries that have been designated for cycling in our community. So we would love to see more attention to the bike map or the bike routes that we have adopted a few years ago. And lastly, I would just say that it's great that we can come do these annual reports to you all, but like I said, we have a great planning commission, a broad range of backgrounds and experience, and we would love to coordinate and partner with the city commission more often, whether that's in ad hoc committees or other forums, especially when we see what the final community master plan looks like. I think especially around these issues of housing and climate, I think there's a lot of opportunity for our community to channel some federal monies to try to address some of these big 21st century challenges. So on that note, I think that's all. If anyone has any questions, or I can sit down.
Commissioners, questions or comments for Sarah? Commissioner Smith.
I just want to say thank you for the lovely presentation and history, and I know it's a really active board, doing a lot of really good work for the city of Marquette. We couldn't do as much as we do here on the commission without your help and fellow planning commissioners, so thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Schlegel.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. I got a soft spot for the Planning Commission after spending almost 6 years there myself. It's funny, you say that we do all the work up here as far as being on the commission, but truly city staff and the Planning Commission members do an incredible amount of work and deserve 95% of the credit, in my opinion. It really is impressive what they get accomplished, and with good leadership from our planners that work alongside the volunteers, it's amazing how important this stuff is that you shuttle up to us, and we just really usually have an easy time with it versus the amount of work that goes into it on your level. So thank you. One thing that was done back many years ago after the last revision, 2015-ish, was what we called a living, breathing document, where you guys would go back on an annual basis and revisit some potential changes. And I'm not sure if that's kind of still the gist of things, but it was something that helped, I think, after a long hiatus of not being updated. It allowed us to really keep our thumb on that master plan a lot more readily, and realize how important it was to make those revisions. So, this next revision, I'm really excited to see. There was a lot of work put into it. I went to many of the meetings, and that's just, that's the stuff that sets our path, and it's really a testament to the leadership of our predecessors that put those ideals in place, and then how we deal with them and make some changes as we get into the future. But it really is impressive, and I couldn't believe that stat. I mean, your crew right now, you've got some amazing people on there, including Steve, which could tell you where the last piece of wooden infrastructure is underground in this city. The guy is just amazing. I learned so much from him. But thank you so much, and I'm sorry to be so long-winded, but you know I'm passionate about the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Larson.
Thanks for the presentation, of course, being on the Planning Commission with you for a majority of time up until the transition here has been great. Certainly do, as the other commissioners have said, the Planning Commission does a lot of work, really into the weeds, with things, and I think that's a very important place to be, and certainly looking forward to the new master plan and open to further collaboration, as you've suggested, in kind of thinking about future issues that come up. Oftentimes, the Planning Commission is kind of on the forefront of a number of those issues that need to be brought forth, and between the commission itself and then the city staff, Dave and Andrea, really have the kind of thumb on the pulse of what's happening in that area. So certainly look forward to continuing working with you and the Planning Commission. Same with Dave and Andrea. So thank you.
Commissioner Ottaway.
Sarah, thank you for everything you do. The Planning Commission is definitely, one of the most important boards in the city of Marquette. That goes without saying. Just look how often you guys meet. Everything you do is so important. My question to you, how are we looking as far as retention and recruitment? I think it's important that we continue having a good pipeline of people to bring in, especially as people term out. Are the planning commissioners doing anything to kind of, foresee the future and knowing that we're going to be losing some planning commissioners and maybe, looking out for the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there was a moment there where we were down to like 6, I think, right at one point, Dave. And decisions, as you probably know, like when you have a smaller number of people, it makes the weight of those decisions even heavier, right? Because it's not spread across a full board of 9. But then that was like a couple months, so it didn't last very long. And we did get kind of a surge of we have a lot of fairly new planning commissioners. And we've had coffee one-on-one and kind of trying to like debrief them, because it's a bit of a learning curve to know, like, because we're all volunteers and none of us like have planning degrees. We're kind of learning this as we go. And so like, there's a little bit of informal, I guess, training, but I think people are really enjoying it. It is like, you do get in the weeds, and some of the stuff, like, some of the stuff gets kind of dry, not gonna lie, but I think a lot of people do see like how meaningful it is and how important it is for the community. So right now, I think we have, again, like a bunch of these folks just started, so I think we're good for at least the next, I don't know, few years. Dave, do you have thoughts on that? You probably have seen more.
We're going to have one commissioner, Aaron Andrus, who served 3 terms now. He's going to term out in February, but his seat will remain. He'll be able to serve until his seat's filled. But other than that, we're looking pretty good for the next couple of years.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay. Other commissioners? Okay. Sarah, thank you so much. I have a great deal of respect for the Planning Commission. I know how much work you folks do, and it's a very rare situation where the commission goes against the Planning Commission's recommendations, because we know how in-depth you study the issue. So that's very much appreciated. I'm looking forward to the master plan and hope that all of the people that came out to provide initial feedback to the master plan come out again to take a look at the draft for that. I'm also was very pleased to hear about their concerns about mobility. We have so many various forms of mobility in our community right now, and I like them because every time I see one, it's another car that might be off the road. So we want to make sure that we have safe routes for those people and be able to support all of the various transportations. The other thing I took note of is that the staff and the Planning Commission are recognizing an increase in the number of people building without permits and causing additional stress, and that's not a fun thing to go to we need to think about public education or where those education touch points might be in the future. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Our second presentation is the Lake Superior Community Partnership by Christopher Germain, who is the CEO of the organization. Christopher?
Rachel, do you mean to do anything with here to turn it over?
You'll just need to minimize that presentation.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Yeah, well, good evening, everyone. It's good to see you all again. Last time I was up here at this podium, I was still working for the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, actually awarding the city certification through redevelopment ready communities. So it's cool to be here from a different perspective. I also took a picture of the Planning Commission annual report and sent it to your RSC planner, so he knows you're still doing your RSC work. So congratulations there. And I will just, before I jump into Ari's pylon, sir, I do have an urban planning degree, and I sat on the planning commission, and I still found it confusing some days. So for what it's worth, it is a very difficult job. I remember spending hours in Grand Rapids reading our packet when my husband was like watching movies and laughing, and it felt very unfair, but it was very, it was also very impactful work. So thank you for all of that. Tonight, you know, it's been a while since the LSCP had been in front of City Commission, so we really wanted to just come check in with you, give you an update on our work as the Economic Development Organization for Marquette County, talk about the partnership that we have with the city, and also what we're looking forward to in 2024. So since the last time someone from the LSCP was here, which would have been Sarah or Amy, I'm not actually sure who it would have been. I tried to dig through your agendas. But either way, we have a new CEO. So hi, Christopher Germain. We have moved our offices, which are now being worked on to be turned into the cultural trailhead through the city's Office of Arts and Culture. We've updated our board structure, which has gone down from 40 board members to 14, which feels much more reasonable. And then we've been working on a number of new initiatives all related to economic development that we'll dive into further, but you'll see them around here: housing, childcare, outdoor recreation, and air service. But before I dive into those issues, I always think this is really important for folks to see. People see the LSCP, right? And you see those 4 letters, and it's a team of 8 folks that we'll get into in a minute, but it is a much bigger network than just that team of 8 folks sitting in our office. So the LSCP itself is a 501c6, so our history is as a chamber kind of formed through multiple chambers, but we've evolved into a full-blown economic development organization over the years. But we also have an LSCP Foundation, which is home to some really popular things like the 4th of July Fireworks Committee, which most people don't realize. The CTE Committee, the Midwest Skills Development Center, which is one of the only line tech programs in the Midwest. Chairman Circle, and we also do special projects that we run through the foundation. And we also have a number of contracts and partner with a number of other economic development organizations, which you see up there, ranging from the Superior Trade Zone, which is an incentive program run between Marquette counties and Delta County, working with Michigan Works, all the way down to existing contractual relationships with Marquette County and the city of Negaunee and the city of Ishpeming. We run the Economic Development Corporation, and we are also the back-end support for both Dickinson and Baraga County EDCs. So we do quite a bit. Outside of that network itself, of course, you're all familiar with a number of our partners as well, many of whom we actually cohabitate with now in our new office space. So Invest UP, Northern Initiatives, Innovate Marquette Smart Zone. We also work very closely with QPAD, Accelerate UP, the DDA. That list goes on and on and on. A lot of our job really at the LSCP is trying to coordinate those pieces together to ensure this vibrant regional economy that we all enjoy up here. So this is that team I mentioned. You're probably familiar with a number of them. There are 8 full-time folks, plus we work with Lois Ellis, and Rebecca Dales there down the lower right is our part-time project manager for Child Care Spark. So she's been a particularly popular person over the last year. So she's doing a really great job running that program. But I was really fortunate to inherit an incredible team at the LSCP, people who have expertise ranging from finance to marketing and communications to business development and community development and really everything in between. Everyone's really pulling a really heavy weight at the LSCP to create this well-rounded organization that can really tackle a lot of different issues. I also think it's important for folks to see our board. They tend to be a little shy and don't really brag about sitting on the LSCP board. So I like to kind of put their names out there a little bit. So Flourish Financial Partners, many people know Scott Nafla in particular. If you're in Rotary, are you familiar with Scott? Rhea Deaver from Northern Michigan Universities, Brian DeAugustine from Nice Schools, Dave Arrow from Superior, and Brett French from UPCO. And keep going down there. There's Robert Luke from Blue Cross Blue Shield. Roxanne Dost is our board chair this year. She has been last year and has continued into this year. Stephanie Jones from Select Realty, Mike Smith from UPCC, Rick Rhodes from TV6, and then our final 4 there, Jesse Bell, who also serves as our treasurer, Bridget LaPointe Dunham from KBIC, Scott Urbish from the county, and Susan Essler, from Travel Marquette. So we actually can have up to 15. We've chosen to keep it at 14 this way to keep that open seat available in case someone comes along. So real quick before we dive into the issues, again, 2022 in numbers, just so you can get an idea of really the breadth that we kind of do across the whole county here. We worked with almost 600 businesses last year, and when we include that, that is business coaching, that's helping them with technical assistance, that's doing business retention and expansion visits. It's also working on marketing and talent, succession planning, which is another big one, that we're the only economic development organization in the entire UP that has an active succession planning program in place. So that is obviously something that's really vital, in particular as a lot of small businesses turn over and folks who've built these over the years want to hand them off, right, to the next generation. They want to keep them in place and running, and that can be a really difficult process to go through. So we can help them work on that. Of those almost 600, 46% of them were in that light blue area there. So the city of Marquette, Marquette Township, and Chocolate Township. Not a big surprise, right? Most of our population is here. A lot of our business, and if you look at the census maps, our jobs are very heavily here, and then they're very heavily out in Ishpeming and Negaunee, right? So you look at that distribution is not super surprising, but one thing that is really surprising is the continued high number of startups that we see in the area. It probably isn't surprising when you think about having Innovate Marquette here and Accelerate UP and some of those partners, but we definitely bat above the average in the area in general in terms of business startups and entrepreneurship. There's a couple of potential reasons for that, but the big thing I like to point out on this map is actually the thing you can't really see, which is the business attraction little bubble, which is a 1% piece. So I think a lot of folks think economic developers just spend all of our time going to conferences and recruiting thousands of jobs back to our area, which then dislocate, right, workers who are in currently existing businesses. We don't do that, right? We have partners who go do business attraction work, and of course, if somebody comes to us and says we want to locate in Marquette County, we're going to help them do that. But we don't spend really any significant amount of our time at all chasing jobs from outside the county. We focus on growing them right here, and we think that's a really important aspect and something that sets us apart from a lot of other EDOs. And then the last thing I'll throw in here is just that we also do run the Economic Development Corporation for the county through a contractual relationship. So last year we put 10 loans out there. Those are typically for folks who've maximized their private sector lending but still have good businesses. It's still a safe bet for whatever reason. They just couldn't go through that traditional lending process. So the EDC exists to do a revolving loan fund to help make those businesses happen. And this is our 5-year impact. That is available in our annual report, so I won't walk you through all those numbers. But what I do think is important is to kind of understand our 2023 priorities in particular. So up here you'll see there's really 5 that are external, and there's a 6th on there now, which is air service. So business development, community development, housing, childcare, outdoor recreation, and air service. We have a number of internal ones as well. I've done quite a bit of work over the last 1.5 years since I've stepped into the CEO role to try to stabilize the organization and really grow it and move it into its next phase. Now that we've celebrated a quarter of a century in existence, it's time to think about what the next 25 years look like for us. So that's been a big focus of us internally. Externally, on the business development side, we've continued to do a lot of those business retention and expansion visits that you've already seen. We've also focused on expanding our specialized resources in-house. So 2 revitalization and placemaking grants that were rewarded here in the last over the year, both rounds, used LSCP economic impact studies to make their case in the MEDC for literally millions of dollars. So we offer those at incredibly affordable rates, things that would typically cost tens of thousands of dollars in the private sector. We offer for about $1,000. Really to any sort of local business that wants them. They're not going to be as in depth, but they're going to be enough to kind of pull you over the finish line, as we've seen with some of these major projects that have gotten those RAP grants. So we're really proud of that. Again, that's something really no other EDO in the UP offers that we do offer here. We've also spent a year, of course, talking about talents and succession planning, and then growing support for small business. Of course, the big news on that was a couple of weeks ago with MEDC announcing $3.4 million that'll come through the LSCP, and then it's spread out among 7 counties for a small business support hub. So we are going to base that here, but that is really a collaboration amongst all of our partners. The LSCP is actually keeping very little of that money at all. And we're spreading out to our partners to put people on the ground in all 7 counties to go work with businesses who don't have the time, quite frankly, to come meet with us. So we're going to go to them and help them figure out how to do that. It also comes with $400,000 in direct grants to businesses that have to be allocated this year. So we're going to be busy over the next year, especially in 2024. So that's the big news on that business development side. Community development has also gotten a lot of big wins in 2023 for us. We have a shared services agreements with the city of Negaunee as well as the city of Ishpeming. So in Negaunee, we do their Moving Forward magazine. So if Nate Heffron has ever tried to shove that magazine into your hands, we made that. And we do that every single year for them. And it's a really great way to get the message out of how a community is moving forward and the successes that it's having In Ishpeming, we've been working with them towards their redevelopment ready community certification, as well as a number of other areas. So we signed an annual contract with them based on what they need. And that's just a really exciting model. Again, one that actually, as far as we know, isn't done anywhere else in the state. And so the Ishpeming contract in particular is a big jump in that direction, and a lot of credit to Sarah Lucas, my predecessor, for really moving in that direction and understanding the relationship between economic development and local governments and that shared support. We also around there, oops, I guess that's telling me to go a little faster. Working around air service, we've been participating in local government planning efforts and then working on some infrastructure needs as well. So we do now have a community development coordinator, which is something that's new again compared to the history of the LSCP. So someone who's working on those issues. Housing, of course, no big surprise here. It's become a huge economic development issue. Quite frankly, if you had asked economic developers 4 years ago whether housing was an issue, they just would have blown you off. So it's happened very quickly that people realized that this was an issue. Most of us people saw it coming, but we do have an intergovernmental housing task force that is staffed by the LSCP and is working on a target market analysis. We also recently collaborated with the Land Bank Authority to hire a housing specialist from Marquette County. Many of you know Antonio, so he'll be serving in that role. That's a big win for us, and again, one of the only housing specialist positions supported by the state in that last round of rural readiness grants. So we're super excited about that. We also sit there and work with developers, and have been working on workshops and other resources to help, again, grow those folks who are here, maybe who want to build a unit or two, and maybe are forgetting to pull permits or don't quite know what that process looks like. And so educating them, connecting them to the resources is really important, again, helping us grow our way out of the issue. Childcare, most of you are familiar with Spark. That's where most of our effort has been. So helping folks start in-home childcare businesses. We just opened the first one about 2 weeks ago, so that was really exciting. Mayor Davis was there with us to celebrate, so thanks for coming out. There are 2 more coming, and then we have other folks that are slowly trickling into the pipeline of the next version of Childcare Spark. But again, innovative. We've gotten requests from as far as New York City asking us for how we were running this program so they can replicate it over there. So super cool, and a big shout out to our partners, Community Foundation, Great Start to Quality, and Marquette Alger Riza for really helping staff and bring the expertise to that, and we're just providing the operational support. So we're excited about that, and we're continuing to participate in Region 1 childcare planning and other initiatives as they come up, including helping folks who maybe already have childcare businesses in other areas who want to start their second business here in Marquette County, helping them do that. Outdoor recreation is one that obviously all the economic development organizations in the area are focusing on, part of diversifying our economy. So as the LSCP's main mission to support existing businesses, we play in this field, and we are supporting the Sustainable Trails Master Planning Initiative, but our friends at Innovate Marquette and Accelerate UP and Invest UP, quite frankly, have more resources around this issue than we do. And so it makes sense to work with them and to collaborate with them where we can. But our really main focus here is on that Sustainable Plan Initiative, or Sustainable Trails Initiative, I should say, which you'll be seeing some more outcomes of that project here in the next month or two come out publicly. And then, of course, air service, everyone's favorite topic. I went to LA in October, actually left out of Sawyer and got back in on time at Sawyer. So that was really exciting. And so I'm hoping my luck spreads to everyone going forward. But I will say behind the scenes, there is a lot happening around air service. So we could spend hours talking about essential air service, which is one of our biggest barriers. We're effectively competing with the federal government around subsidizing flights at all of our neighboring airports, and it makes it incredibly difficult for us to have a competitive flight schedule. But that being said, there are some things that we can do. So we are working on a demand and leakage study right now, which is an updated from 2014 that actually says, where is everyone else going, and what is the demand, and what are those price points? Last time we did this, we actually used it to go to the airlines directly, and we got them Marquette to Minneapolis flight. And so we're hoping that we can repeat that success. We already have a couple of airlines that we're targeting that are going to be different than the ones we already have here. But we're working also with Invest UP and another group of collaborative folks, which City Manager Karen sits on, who will also work on that strategy for the overall airport, right, and really making it our regional airport. So it's an incredibly vital asset to us, not just from a convenience standpoint of sometimes we all want to go to Cancun in March, but also we need to drive economic, right, activity, and we need to have that flexibility to get in and out. Our businesses need to get their clients in and out, and vice versa. So it's a really critical economic development issue for us. That's right there. So one last thing just from 2023 that we're really proud of was META coming to Marquette. So this is the second time the Michigan Economic Developers Association came to the city of Marquette. It's the second time they've broken attendance records. So we're really excited about that. I'm now working on the Michigan Association of Planning, trying to get them up here in a few years, and we're seeing more conferences come to the area, so we're really excited, but we were happy to host them and to have them here. And that's one example of the work that we do with the LSCP to build downstate relationships and across the whole region that then can bring resources to Marquette. And then finally, 2024, just looking forward, we are working on the strategic plan that we think will bring some structural change to the organization that'll better define a lot of these services. One of the things we hear about the LSCP all the time is, what exactly are you, right? Are you a chamber? Are you an economic development organization? Are you a staffing agency? The truth is, we're a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and there's better ways to structurally build that make more sense to that going forward. So we're looking forward to making some of those changes. Then we're also expecting the course to keep working. Housing, air service, childcare, outdoor recreation. I also expect energy will be a big topic in 2024, I think, for obvious reasons. And so in addition to all those, we'll be working on implementing that small business support hub, which has a very tight turnaround from the MEDC. So that will be up and running here in a matter of a couple of months, if not sooner. So we're really excited about that. We're also working on full development of a housing development tracker for Marquette County. One of the most common things we get is folks don't actually understand, or we don't know for sure, right, how many housing projects have gone through the approval process or are in the design phase or whatever across the whole county. I think the city does a good job of tracking it, but countywide, we don't always do a great job. And so being able to have a better understanding of that, we think is important. Assisting with the implementation of the regional housing plan along with QPAD and our partners over there. We're also relaunching the Economic Development Breakfast Series, which used to be here. We used to just have more events and do more dialogue facilitating. I think it's important that we get back to those roots of the LSCP. And then we're also really looking forward to holding an emerging developer event along with MEDC here in Marquette County. So there's a lot to do. It's a team of 8. There are only so many things we can do, but we are constantly pushing the limits of what we can do with the LSCP. And I think it's really important, to share that story with everyone, to understand everything that goes on behind the scenes. It's not the ribbon cuttings and the BAs and the things that you see, which are important, and they build connections and foster that network, but it's everything that happens behind the scenes from those events that really, really matters. So I'm going to stop with that and answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Christopher. Comments or questions from the commission? Commissioner Ottaway.
Chris, wow, that's all I got to say. I will say, I probably will speak for everyone to say, we see a lot of people come talk to us. It's really nice to see somebody put such a huge amount of information in such a short time frame. I feel like I know everything you guys are doing, and that's spectacular. I can feel your passion when you're talking. I think that's great. Ultimately, the LSCP is so important to our community, as you know. I think the city of Marquette wants to be a partner in anything we can do for economic development. And I can tell you, just from my understanding and talking to people in the community, they have nothing but good things to say about you over the last year, as well as your staff. Your staff, I can personally say on numerous occasions, I've had great interactions with. They're such friendly people and very inviting. And I think that probably reflects a lot upon your leadership. So good job with that. And I really look forward to 2024. I think you guys are going to keep bringing it, and I'm looking forward to see what happens.
Thanks, Commissioner. I appreciate that. And I really did hit the jackpot with staff. You're right. So,
usually how it works.
Right.
Commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Schlegel.
Yeah, thank you, Christopher. Way to show up and throw up. That was impressive. That's what we used to call it back in the day, when you only had so much time, but you're so passionate, you have so much to say. That was really excellent, and I was probably on the commission back the last time that the presentation was given, and the difference in the involvement and capacity of what you guys are doing is incredibly much more involved. And the fact that you've got that many balls in the air and you're able to keep things moving with these other entities is really exciting, because from the outside looking in, I was looking forward to this presentation because we don't have any experience with each other. And I'm really looking forward to getting to know you and these other programs, because there's so much going on. There's so much energy. That's what we need to have going on. So thanks for bringing that to the table tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you. Welcome back to commission, by the way, too.
Commissioner Smith.
I just want to say thank you, Christopher, for the presentation, and more importantly, for the work that you and your team are doing. The LSCP has, like you said, served a lot of roles for a lot of different people and organizations, and I think you and your team are doing a really nice job of redefining that and getting funding to hit the areas that we really need at this point in time. So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Commissioner Mayor.
Yeah, and I just want to add, since you've been here and I had the privilege of working with you more over the last year, that it has been truly fantastic working with you. And you have this approach with, I think, a lot of the EDO leadership as well, that, we have several organizations that it's really a partnership and a collaborative effort. And combining the resources like that in a purposeful and strategic manner so that those funds and those efforts go a lot farther, I think really show. And I'm really glad we have you here and that you have the amazing team that you do. And I look forward to you tackling some of those things on that list. But thank you.
Thanks, Cody. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you so much, Christopher. Congratulations, huge congratulations on your $3.4 million grant. And you just seem like you're so busy in that office and you've got so much to offer yet. I was particularly pleased to know that a lot of your priorities align with the city's priorities and what we'll be seeing in the master plan. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, y'all. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have two public hearings. The first is a rezoning of 1025 Osprey Court. City Clerk, could I have the background, please?
Thank you, Mayor. On October 3rd, 2023, the Planning Commission conducted a public hearing for the proposed rezoning of a parcel of land with the address of 1025 Osprey Court from a planned unit development, PUD, district to a multifamily residential zoning district. This request was brought to the Planning Commission by the city planner as the PUD's approval expired and the right to develop per the approved site plans for Hawks Ridge PUD is terminated per Article 54.323L6 in the city's land development code. The property has been acquired by Marquette County and has been listed for sale in hopes of being developed to produce tax revenue. Hence, the rezoning the property is necessary for the development of the property to proceed without undue delay once the developer purchases the property. After the presentation of the staff file review and analysis, applicant testimony, and a public hearing, the Planning Commission made the following motion. It was moved by C. Gottlieb and seconded by Kate Clegg and carried 8-0 that after conducting a public hearing and review of the application and staff report for 02-REZ-10-23, the Planning Commission finds that the previously approval planned unit development zoning for the property is invalidated per the standards of the LDC, section 54.323L6, and that the proposed rezoning is consistent with the community master plan and meets the requirements of the LDC section 54.1405, and hereby recommends that the City Commission approve 02-REZ-05-22 as presented. Approval will change the zoning district to multifamily residential, MFR. The public hearing was scheduled at the October 30th, 2023 City Commission meeting. Fiscal effect, none. Recommendation, adopt ordinance 724 and rezone 1025 Osprey Court from a planned unit development PUD district to a multifamily residential MFR district. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. The public hearing is now open for the rezoning of 1025 Osprey Court. If you choose to comment on this issue, please step to the podium. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on this. Pardon? No, don't need to.
No.
So, commissioners, do you have a motion on this? Okay, Commissioner Hanley, or Pro Tem Hanley, sorry.
I move that we adopt ordinance 724 and rezone 1025 Osprey Court from a planned unit development district to a multiple family residential district.
And a second, Commissioner Larson.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
The Planning Commission did their due diligence on this and gave us a great recommendation, and I'm happy to follow it.
No additional comment.
Okay, any other comments, commissioners? Okay, this is a roll call vote. So, City Clerk?
No.
No? It says right here, roll call vote. On our agenda.
Good.
Oh, on the agenda that was given to us in the minutes, it is not a roll call vote. In our
Commissioner,
packet, it says roll call vote.
Commissioner Ellerson?
So
It is a
Suzanne,
roll call vote in the packet.
Because rezoning happens by ordinance, you're actually adopting an ordinance, so it is, yes, it is a roll
is a
call.
roll call vote. Okay. So city clerk, please conduct the roll call vote.
Commissioner Larson?
Yes.
Commissioner Mayor?
Yes.
Commissioner Ottaway?
Yes.
Commissioner Slagle?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hanley?
Yes.
And Mayor Davis.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. We will now conduct a public hearing on the rezoning of 905 North Lakeshore Boulevard. City Clerk, would you read the background, please?
Once it loads, there we are. On October 3rd, 2023, the Planning Commission conducted a public hearing for the proposed rezoning of a parcel of land at the address of 905 North Lakeshore Boulevard from a planned unit development PUD district to a mixed-use zoning district. This request was brought to the Planning Commission by the city planner as the PUD's approval has expired. As has a 2-year extension of the approval granted in 2017, and the right to develop per the approved site plans for the Lakeshore Cottages PUD is terminated per Article 54.323 L6 and the city's Land Development Code LDC. The same portion of the LDC specifies the rezoning procedure and assignment of the new zoning district, which in this case is mixed use, which the land use designation for this property of the future land use map of the community master plan. After the presentation of the staff file review and analysis, applicant testimony, and a public hearing, the Planning Commission made the following motion. It was moved by Kay Clegg and seconded by S. Lowry and carried 8-0 that after conducting a public hearing and review of the application and staff report for 03-REZ-10-23, the Planning Commission finds that the previously approval planned unit development zoning for the property is invalidated per the standards of the Land Development Code, section 54.323 L6, and the proposed rezoning is consistent with the community master plan and meets the requirements of the LDC, section 54.1405, and hereby recommends that the City Commission approve 03-REZ-0522 as presented. Approval will change the zoning district to mixed use. The public hearing was scheduled at the October 30th, 2023 Commission meeting. Fiscal effect, none. Recommendation, adopt ordinance 725 and rezone 905 North Lakeshore Boulevard from a planned unit development PUD district to a mixed-use MU district. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you. So the public hearing for the rezoning of 905 North Lakeshore Boulevard is now open. If you wish to comment on this issue, please step to the podium.
Margaret Brum, 404 East Magnetic Street. I've been reading the notes of the Planning Commission, and there was a great deal of discussion about potential future use for this area being including a hotel. And this is right down the street from a piece of property that was requested for a hotel within the last 2 years that engendered a great deal of negative feedback from the community. I'm wondering if anything can be done with this vote tonight to ensure that this piece of property is not later on sold, and because of the zoning you've been asked to approve tonight, turned into a hotel without additional input from the public. And I don't know if there's anything you can do, but I'm asking on the record if there is anything you can do to make sure that this piece of property is never turned into a hotel. Thank you.
Anyone else for comments on this issue? Anyone else? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And commissioners, do I have a motion for this item? Commissioner Larson.
I move that we adopt ordinance 725 and rezone 905 North Lakeshore Boulevard from a planned unit development district to a mixed-use district.
And Commissioner Ottaway?
Second.
Okay, comments, Commissioner Larson?
I do think that, that this is consistent with the community master plan and meets the requirements of the LDC as found by the planning commission. And as far as, other, uses of that property go, with special land use, they'll probably would have to go back before the planning commission for, items like a hotel and otherwise within that in mixed use district, as the previous one did, as well when we heard that. So the planning commission would get another shot at that to direct, to that previous comment.
Okay. Commissioner Ottaway?
Yeah, just if we could have, since we have city staff here tonight, just give us the process real quick. If that property was sold, what an applicant would need to do if they did want to turn it into a hotel. Because it's a worthy question.
Sure, thanks for the question. So a hotel is in the special land use category for that zoning district. So the property owners, the Emmendorfers, would need to apply for a special land use permit for that hotel. Actually, what they wanted to do there was, their PUD was a small cottage-style development, almost like cottage townhouses. And they're still not sure if they want to do that or if they'll be able to do that or not in their lifetimes, or if they're going to turn that property over to their kids, but they live right across the street. And I think that if they do want to do that, the mixed-use development will allow them to do that without much trouble. Pretty much what they had designed before would have required a PUD in the past because it wasn't a deferred development zoning at the time. They went through that PUD process about 10 years ago or more. So special land use process would be required either way. And the chair of the planning commission here, Sarah, would I think also vouch for the fact that the planning commission has asked our consultant our master planning consultant to look into the possibility of us creating a different type of lakeshore scenic corridor mixed use district that would exclude hotels from north of McCarty's Cove or north of the Lighthouse Park area to Presque Isle. So that's another possibility that we could implement in the future, in the near future.
Okay, thank you. Other commissioners' comments? Okay. With that, we'll do the roll call vote.
Commissioner Larson?
Yes.
Commissioner Mayer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ottaway?
Yes.
Commissioner Schlegel?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hanley?
Yes.
And Mayor Davis.
Yes. The motion passes 6-0. So let's move on to the consent agenda. Commissioners, do I have a motion? Commissioner Ottaway.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
And a second. Commissioner Schlegel.
Let's second the motion.
Comments?
None from me.
None for me.
Schlegel? Anyone? Okay, all in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. So we're going to move on to new business, and our first item, number 7, is the DPW labor agreement. City Clerk, background, please.
Of course. The City of Marquette has reached an agreement with the Department of Public Works and Utility Employees Chapter of ASME Local 1852. The bargaining unit has ratified the agreement. Their original agreement was effective October 1, 2021, with contractual wage reopeners for 2022 and 2023, terminating September 30th, 2024. However, the city's bargaining team and the DPW and Utilities unit of ASME have agreed on wages for 2023 and extending the contract for 2 years. The agreed upon wages for the length of the extended contract include increases of 5% for 2023, in addition to a one-time $400 per employee signing bonus, and 3% increases for 2024 and 2025. The bargaining team commends the DPW and Utilities unit of ASME for their willingness to work with us to extend the collective bargaining agreement in a way that is fair to the employees and the city. Fiscal effect, the total cost for the first year, 5% increases to wages in addition to the one-time $400 signing signing bonus is approximately $152,000. This will require a budget adjustment. Recommendation, approve the Department of Public Works and Utilities Employees Labor Agreement extension effective October 1, 2023 through September 30th, 2026, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign the agreement. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you. Commissioners, do I have a motion? Commissioner Ottaway?
I move to approve the Department of Public Works and Utilities Employees Labor Agreement extension effective October 1st, 2023 through September 20th, 2026, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign the agreement.
And the second? Commissioner Smith?
Commissioner Ottaway, did you mean September 30? I just want to clarify.
Okay.
You said September 20. I just don't want to cut him short by 10 days. It's okay.
Yes. Thank you.
I would like to second. Thank you.
You do want to second that, okay. And comments?
No, I'm just happy to see this get done. I think it is a testament to our labor union as well as our negotiators to really come up with a fair deal here. Obviously, as inflation has went up, the cost of us paying our employees is going to do the same, and we understand that, and I think a fair deal was made here.
Okay. Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, I'm glad that we were able to come to an agreement and that this has a little bit of, a couple extra years on it so that we can focus on the tasks ahead of us and hopefully continue to recognize and reward our employees in future years. But I'm glad that we were able to come to an agreement.
Other commissioners? Comments? Okay. All in favor, say yes.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Moving on to number 8, we have the request for license to use city property for retaining wall on Jenny Lane. City Clerk?
The owner of 2005 Jenny Lane has submitted an application for a grant of license to use a portion of the right-of-way adjacent to his property, where he recently constructed a large retaining wall. Attachments include an application and maps showing the key features of the location, including utilities in the right-of-way, as well as the required staff comment form for a license request and 4 items of correspondence. Fiscal effect, none. Recommendation, deny the request for a license to use city property. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you. Commissioners, do I have a motion?
I don't have it in front of me.
Pro Tem Hanley?
I'm going to need Suzanne's help on this one, I think, because I want to move to approve it, but I know that there's going to be special language that I need in it.
So, if you want to move to approve this, I suggest that you make a motion as follows.
Okay.
I move that we approve the license request and direct the city attorney to draft the license and a memorandum to be recorded at the Register of Deeds upon approval of both documents.
Can I
Or
say-
something along those
Can I say
lines.
ditto? Can you? No. I got as far as I move that we approve the license request and direct the city attorney to
Draft the license
draft the license
and a memorandum or some other document to be recorded at the Register of Deeds.
and a memorandum or some other document to be recorded at the Register of Deeds.
Commissioners,
And for clarification, once those documents are drafted, those will come back for approval by the commission.
Okay.
do I have a second? Commissioner Mayor?
I'll second.
Discussion?
Yes, this has been something that I've fought with back and forth all weekend, trying to decide what the appropriate response was. The wall does look wonderful. It does not technically, it does encroach on city land, but it's not anything that I think would cause an issue in the future. The landowner will be required to cover the costs if it is something that has to be worked on. I think it is a unfortunate circumstance that happened, and I think that we can make it right, and for both us and the property owner.
I have a question here, probably for Suzanne. With the current language, this would not be a conditional approval, correct? This would be just an approval.
That is correct. This would not be a conditional
So-
approval. We're just, there were some specific concerns of engineering, for example, that this be something that's reflected in the chain of title for the property. In my conversations with them, I actually I suggested that maybe that's something we'd want to do going forward regardless for licenses, because it gets really confusing when properties change ownership in this circumstance, so.
So with that then, I'm actually going to move to amend and add the following language to require that current or future property owners to remove the wall at the cost of the owner if sewer or utility repairs or replacements are needed.
So for clarification, all of our licenses require that of the property owner to begin with.
Then I don't need to make that amendment. Okay, I'm good then.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Other comments? Commissioner Ottaway?
I would really like to have the applicant come up for comment if possible.
We can provide that privileged comment, so if you would step to the podium.
While he's coming up, if I could ask city staff just to clarify some numbers for me. When we're talking about the right-of-way that has been impeded, what is the number that is coming into play as far as what is allowed there and how much has actually been encroached on?
I think that Dave Census is getting that.
The right-of-way area, that's the area between, at least the area between the property line and the edge of the street is 21 feet. At the maximum, this wall encroaches to within 13.25, 13 and a quarter feet of the edge of the right-of-way, or the edge of the street. So it's 7 3/4 feet into the right-of-way at the maximum, but it angles in from basically a 0 point on the corner out to that 7, coming into the right-of-way 7 3/4 feet. At that point where it's closest to the right-of-way, it's closest to the sewer line, which is, 2 or 3 feet, or something like that, from the edge of the retaining wall. And that's the concern, that when that sewer line's replaced, engineering would have to put in a sheet pile wall or some kind of a trench spreader to protect their employees from the trench collapsing while they're replacing the wall. So that's where the concern is for the city's extra effort to have to replace that. That pipe could last another 100 years.
Sure.
But at some point, it's going to fail. And that's, that's the concern with passing it on to another homeowner.
If you just comment,
One sec, please. So as we look at just that piece, obviously in the application process, city planning, obviously thinks that potentially could be a problem. My issue is when I look at the numbers, and I guess first question I have as I'm sitting here, can you think of any time where we've ever allowed a 33% encroachment onto city property?
This is one of the, we've done a lot of encroachments into the property. This is at that maximum point that's probably about as extreme as it has been. If somebody, the point of denying this is that, my job as an administrative officer is to not approve something that doesn't meet the code, right? Or doesn't meet city policy. That's just a standard that you all need to make that decision. But if this application had come to us before the wall was built, I don't think engineering or DPW would have agreed to it at that point.
Sure.
Without the wall being there.
Okay. So my next question is for the applicant, since you're right here. One of the things, so I used to be the chair of the Board of Zoning Appeals, and one thing we would do is listen to variances. We have people here that served on the Planning Commission. My first question I have for this is, as you've built the driveway, and basically, I drove by the property, I took a good look, I saw what your issues were and what the concerns are here. But as the driveway was built, is this something that it was built in this fashion because of the land? Or is it something that you built a wide driveway and then found out later that you couldn't have had this at the spot?
It was kind of a mixture of both.
Okay.
It was never intended to be like that, but when the swing for the second door, it was not possible to get into it because you can only have a driveway so wide. So to actually be able to use that driveway, or the, not driveway, second, it's a two stall garage.
Yeah, door on the left.
Correct. That one, I should have never built it. I didn't realize it was gonna be so high, but the plumbing, I had to combine the lots. And he allowed a bathroom to be put in the garage. Well, that bathroom for elevation has to run to the sewer at the house. So that, with the frost footing required, it's at minimal pitch, that garage had to be that high, and that wasn't something until you're actually building, and you put your frost footing in, and now you're with the sewer, you're like, oh no, I gotta go up. So the extra course of block ended up going on, and that screwed everything up. As far as what he's saying on the digging the close part of that with, blockage and the DPW not being able to dig, that's not the high height of the wall.
Sure.
He's talking one course of block, two course of block. You're not gonna need to do, a trench box for two courses of block. I mean, a block is 8 inches high, that's 16 inches. Nobody's gonna get trapped in 16 inches. And where the sewer line is, I ran a line from manhole to manhole. I do this for a living. I've been doing this for 14 years. I respect his opinion, but you wouldn't have a butcher, change your oil. This is my expertise, and I wouldn't be in front of that. This is not my thing. If it was a legitimate issue, I own a sewer business. It would not be something that, if it was compromised in this, that I'd be requesting that. There's literally no structural integrity whatsoever that is compromised. If for some reason you run a new main or something like that, I'll take the wall down at my cost, and it is what it is. But if you go around town, I understand what he's saying, because my right-of-way is so big, 21 feet. Any one of you, go to your yards, go look where the water shut-off is, close to the road. Mine, if you look at the other garage over there, sorry, dry, it's almost at my house. Sure. So me trying to meet that, let's say that retaining wall's not there. How could I ever drive into that garage? I should never have built it, I guess.
That's a fair point. And really, the issue here, you're stating yourself, and I think that people have to, commissioners, I hope, really understand the order of operations as we're dealing with this. A lot of the things that are becoming problems, and the reason you're here today, is because the rules weren't followed to start. And that is the problem that we are having. It has nothing to do with other properties that have retaining walls. I don't know why other properties have retaining walls or what their impediments are, but the fact of the matter is, this is a new construction that's here, and it is in that area where it's kind of crossed the barrier, where when we look at granting a variance, for instance, we always grant that variance in the least amount of disruption that it's going to be possible. The problem we have with this, it's already been built. So we're going backwards, trying to figure out if this is something we can allow.
And I get that, and
sure,
monetarily, I don't know what my options are. It cost me a lot of money. When I was young, I had a little small house. I built it. I sold that to build this. We're at the end of the money.
Yeah.
The other option is, legally, I could go call someone, haul me a bunch of loads of dirt. I could put that in front of that retaining wall and cover that, and now it's legal.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? I get what you're saying, but as far as common sense wise, why do I have to, in this circumstance?
Sure. One last thing that I'll say. This is no different than, say, I owned a piece of property.
Yes.
And I decided, I'm going to build a shed here without checking with the city. Then I find out, oh my God, the shed's on city property, or it's on someone else's property. That's kind of the issue we're dealing with here. We're not talking about, you mentioned, I think it was college. We're not talking about encroachment there. Typically when we have an encroachment in city terms, you're talking about very small percentages that are allowed for variances, not typically 33% of what an encroachment
Right, but
would be.
if you look at where his right-of-way is to mine,
Sure.
You're talking apples to apples.
Understand.
It just happens that, their right-of-way is only 10 feet off the road.
Right.
Mine is 21.
Right.
I mean, I totally, you gotta follow the rules and all that, and, I mean, I bought so many permits through the city, and even this costs, a cost out of here that I probably didn't have to just try to get this, and
Sure, no, and I fully understand. Before I decide to support a motion, I need as much info as possible on this. That's why I'm stealing all of your guys' time, and I apologize for that.
I also called Zemco. He's totally okay with it too. I mean, it's not even close with him, but.
Sure. And I guess my next question would be, as far as the application process, if city staff could just kind of give me an idea of how this was discovered, and basically you're explaining to the point where you went through the permitting process numerous times. The structure's already built. It's already
I
standing.
didn't know that the retaining wall itself I bought 2 right-of-way permits, all that. I didn't know that the retaining wall needed a permit. That's on me. I should know. I mean, apparently even dog fences need,
Sure.
I guess that's something I should have known.
So 2 questions for city staff, if I may. First and foremost, the portion of the driveway that is to the left, that is meeting up with his garage door, that is okay from Public Works standpoint, even though that's not a driveway that's actually extending into the right-of-way. It's just the top part. I'm talking about the top part of the retaining wall. Is that okay as we sit today?
It would be, yes, it's okay. That part is approved, and as Mr. Tonka said, it would be approved if the retaining wall isn't there and it's just supported by dirt.
Okay.
And to go back to my comment, I wasn't the person that said there's gonna need a sheet pile or a trench spreader in there. That was the city engineer.
I apologize.
We collaborate pretty closely on these
Yeah,
issues.
totally understand. I have no more questions for the applicant unless any other commissioner does. I'm sorry I stole all of your times.
Other commissioners? Comments? Commissioner Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Tonka, so you've done a lot of work here, and I also drove by it earlier today just to kind of get a better viewpoint of everything. Everything else you've done up to this point, you went out and got the permits you needed for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, you kind of do this work to begin with. So in my mind, you definitely knew that this
I do
was
sewer work, the
the
retaining
city
wall.
right away, right?
No, I have the 2019 permit where the driveway is drawn out at 17 feet. And Andrea, and maybe it was a misunderstanding between 2 of us, but when I applied for it, she told me, make sure you go this far so that you don't have to apply for a permit again. So that's why I assumed it was the 17 feet. And then when the corner of the wall stopped at the 17 feet, it ended up angling in more when the guys put the corner on. So like when you stagger retaining wall blocks so that they butt up, it doesn't end up as a 90-degree corner. It ends up more sweeping. So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Schlegel?
Yeah, thank you. So, it's kind of in my backyard over there, so I did go and take a look. Did you ever plan on just doing a straight pitch access to your garage? Was that the initial plan?
That is that I didn't want it like the other driveway because issue I have is waking up and having my vehicles in the road. So Sunday, slippery. Went to the store, came back, parked the truck in the driveway. Me and my daughter walk in the door. Oh, there goes my truck. Bill can attest to this. Has seen my truck in the middle of the road because the angle doesn't work.
Right. Okay. So you've got a big garage there now, big landing pad in there for parking your vehicles. I mean, realistically, the idea is to keep your stuff out of the weather, right?
Correct.
So I get what you did. It's smart to get that sweep so you can get a truck and a trailer into that space. I see you've got the back garage door there as well, so that you can drive through. And I wouldn't be surprised if your idea might be to kind of do a whole loop coming out the back side of that if possible, but none of my business.
That's just for the lawnmower, but.
Okay, yep, makes sense. So I'm kind of hung up on this. I get where you're coming from, Dave, and I totally agree with you, and you're just doing what you have to with that. To put a spreader there, you're not talking about 18 inches in order to put a spreader in, right? You're talking about going down to frost line level to replace major,
To that point,
major sewer work, correct? So you have to keep that from caving in, which is not an uncommon practice. I mean, you see it all the time with major infrastructure issues.
DPW did put the camera down there with the locator, and in that stretch from Nygaard's to that area is only 4.5 feet deep. So we're not talking an excavation to see it. We're only talking
Frost line. Yeah.
exact, and it's PVC plastic, and I mean it's like the
Yeah,
greatest
but
invention ever
everybody's
made.
got to be safe, right?
Yeah.
So if they got to do it, they got to do it.
If you got to blow
all
it
I'm
up,
saying.
blow it up. It
Right.
just
Okay. And I guess with the, this is almost going back to the BZA days. It's like a non-conforming where you're grandfathered in to a certain degree because the development was put in a fashion that isn't accustomed to today's standards. It sounds like to me, if I'm reading this correctly from the way that the layout of the neighborhood is. So, to say that there's 21 feet versus the norm of 13 or maybe less, I think that that's something that we really need to take into consideration when you're looking at an excessive 21 feet. So, giving you, a little bit of playroom for that. I don't have a problem, and I believe you in all of your efforts. I realize you work for the city, you work for your own business. You're not going to try and pull the wool over, but I sure as heck don't want to make a precedence of something like this because, and let alone where you are back there. I mean, traffic-wise, you get very little traffic. It's not like we're going to have to worry about much. But I get where you're coming from with your issues that you're bringing up. Okay, I think I'm all set.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you for being here and explaining your side of everything. It does help. I don't have any more questions for you. Maybe others do, but just some comments that I was really on the fence about this one. To some degree, I still am. I would be okay supporting the motion as it stands, but I am very worried about the precedent that it sets. That's the big thing, and I hate to make this a dog and pony show, and I'm not trying to make you feel bad, but as you know, we've got a line of other people watching this, wondering what they can do with their properties.
Well,
So I respect your time, but I'm hoping that our city manager can comment on that, or our city attorney, just so we as a commission are prepped for what that could mean if we approve the motion as it stands.
I can tell you that from my standpoint, it absolutely creates a precedence. And as I'm dealing with code enforcement issues with other property owners who build things without getting permits, I have one I've been dealing with for almost a year now. It makes it very difficult to enforce those codes.
Thank you for sharing.
City manager?
I think that you've covered it, but the sense of just the request that we receive from all residents and the reason why we have to continuously explain rules, and while this one, as somebody had stated, was ideal versus real, is a really interesting way to describe it. It's hard to do that when we have so many properties to manage on a set of rules. So I do appreciate this feedback and the dialogue, but that is why we concur with city staff, and that's why we felt obligated to make that recommendation as well.
Commissioner Larson?
So I think I'm coming at this just from a strictly land development code, city ordinance, side of things. So regardless of how big the setbacks are, regardless how it is, I think it's the application of consistency kind of across our code and applying it to, all properties here. So nothing against the property itself, but I think that's the decision that we are set forth with, is actually thinking about how do we want to apply the code, and does it get applied equally amongst all property owners for what they decide to do. So there's other folks who may have wanted to build something like this, but have gone to, have gone through the proper channels and have had it denied. So those folks have effectively not been able to build that, at that portion. And so then, if we approve one that has built first and then it gets approved later, there is some precedence that is set for that, makes it more difficult for our city to kind of enforce future rules that are associated with it. So regardless of whether or not you need a spreader or how far back that setback is, it's really, does the code that the city has accepted, mean we should enforce it? Or does it mean that there are some exceptions to it? Is there a practical difficulty, in this situation that maybe should go before the Board of Zoning Appeals? I don't know if this would be a fit for there or not, but maybe Dave can say something if this would be a BZA issue. But whether or not there's a practical difficulty here associated or not, I don't know.
So no, this wouldn't be a BZA issue because it's in the right of way, but the process should have unfolded just like this, but with an application before the wall was built. And that's exactly what we would have done, and that's exactly what we have done in other cases where staff has said, we cannot approve this because it doesn't meet the city policy. An example of one recently was a homeowner wanted to build a fence out into the city's property along the pedestrian corridor near Crescent Street. And all the city staff said, engineering, DPW and zoning said, we can't say this is okay. It's city property. Even though you're saying this is not going to, it's going to add a little bit of land to your property, well, that's a decision the city commission has to make. So you get to make that decision. It's city property. That's the same thing with this right of way. So that's how we handle these cases. If they're not harmful, if all of our city staff says this is a minor encroachment, like the wall Mr. Tanker referred to at 4th and College, which encroached about 2 inches or 3 inches into the right of way, that's a different story. So the application coming to you before the wall was built would have been the ideal way for this to have been handled.
I'm sorry, it's not your time to
We would
talk.
have done the same thing, given the applicant the opportunity to come to the BZA or come to you and make the case with the application being, the same status, not approved by city staff, and you making the decision.
But just as David emailed me, it doesn't matter if you go 1 mile an hour over the speed limit or 5 miles an hour. He did approve it after the fact. So in that, if you're doing apples to, in that circumstance. And as far as setting precedent, it's not setting a precedent because you're requiring me to have a license I've had to go through all this and says if there's an issue, I have to take it down and pay for it on my dollar. So that's not the same as just saying, you can have a fort in your front yard, even though you're not allowed to, because if you say something has to happen there and I take it down, DPW doesn't, I have to. So that
You had your hand up earlier. No comment? Commissioner Mayor.
Thank you, Your Honor. As far as the precedence goes, I understand what you're saying, that viewpoint of it. It's more so the, ask for forgiveness later kind of concept. We're going now in my second term on the commission, but I've had full 3 years here, and I've seen a few different times we've had situations like this where someone went ahead and did something, and then after the fact asked for us to just okay it. I have a really hard time with these because I look at each one very specifically at the circumstances and how it played out. Because I feel for you in this scenario. This is not an ideal situation to be in. I empathize with that. What I would say though is, since I've been on the commission, is every time that I can think of, at least, that we've had situations come forward like this, we have never approved these types of scenarios. A couple of times I sided in favor of the property owner as well, and if I recall correctly, I've lost on those votes. I don't know. It's just, that's what I have to add for you. There is the concern of precedent setting, because if people think the commission's just gonna okay it after they did it, then everyone's gonna just kind of throw that land development code that our planning commissioners and the city staff and the commission have already approved and set in stone, so.
Well, another thing is we just had a presentation about the zoning and, you know, working on the city putting their policies out there better for better communication. I don't know if you've ever dealt with zoning out of this environment, but it's not the most, you know, you're like, hey, how do I do this? There's not a lot of that. It's, no, you can't do that. You know,
Because, any other questions for Mr. Tanka?
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner Ottaway?
Did your builder or architect actually draw this up in your plans? I mean, because typically when you are building something like this, it's going to be something that is spotted.
he built the building.
Okay.
But he didn't set the you know what I mean? Here's your drawing, you build it, and as an excavator, I'm digging the basement out, and you're setting it. But he didn't set it, I don't know, as elevation. You know, I've dug basements my whole life. The guy doing the drawings doesn't set the elevation, the builder does. You know, as my own self digging it out, I guess that's a basement's dug unless it's, you know, $20 million home. You know, a normal residential home is an eyeball field type of thing. You're like, oh, this has to go here because this won't work this way. And the first thing is the sewer, it couldn't be lower because it doesn't run uphill.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tanka. Any other questions for Mr. Tanka? Okay, thank you. You can sit down. Commissioners, any other comments? Commissioner Ottaway.
So one of the things that I was trying to understand from this, because this is my number one issue with this, is the process of it all. There are so many things with precedent that I feel us as a commission, we can't allow to happen. You can't allow, I feel for Mr. Tanka, I really do, in this situation. I don't know the details of how it happened or any of that. I mean, the fact of the matter is it did happen and there's an issue there. But ultimately, you know, I think if the proper planning had been completed, he would have gotten these answers before the structure was built. To me, this is pretty simple. We would not allow anyone to build 33% onto city property without some sort of permitting happening before, and that permitting is never going to be granted by the city. Ultimately, if this was something that went to court, you know, and, you know, from another property owner that said, hey, the city of Marquette has allowed 33%, you know, in this instance, I don't think we want to be, I don't think we want to set that precedent here today. I also don't think we want to set the precedent of looking at this and allowing a build to happen and, you know, ask for forgiveness later. We need to make sure that the proper channels are followed through with. Once again, I don't know how that didn't happen in this instance, but we need to make sure that that's happening, and we need to make sure that, you know, we're doing everything we can as a commission and governing body to make sure that the rules are followed, because they're there for a reason. And that's all I have to say about it.
Okay, comments? Other comments? Commissioner Smith.
I guess I would just say I intend to support Commissioner Hanley's motion and allow the retaining wall to remain. I am curious what kind of fees the resident would have to incur, and I guess I would just, it's evident to me that we've essentially had a work session on this topic. It's a complicated one that we're having a hard time grappling with, but it is not our job as a city commission to just read the code and, you know, cookie cutter it out. We are elected to be the voice for the community, and it's more complicated than just the documents. I understand the precedent, and that's important too, but we have to take all the factors, and if that's the most important thing, that's the most important piece. But, you know, we don't have the luxury of just being the BZA and yes or no. We have to take everything into consideration when we make our decision. So the fees is my last question for city staff, how that all works, but I intend to support the exception. I don't know how to say that differently.
I think the fees have been paid.
Yes,
They're
it's
paid
the
in
fee for
advance
this application.
For the application. There's no additional fees?
No.
Looks like.
The licensing fee?
Oh, that's a good question. Thank you.
No, the license is
the application fee. There's not a separate, we used to have an annual fee that went away. The license application is the fee for the license.
So there's no additional fees at this point that have been paid just to make this application?
Just a one-time fee.
Does that sound right?
I believe so.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I was just curious, and it was $400 some, correct?
445.
Thank you. Thank you, that's it for me.
Commissioner Schlegel?
So, staff question, so we're talking 21-foot right-of-way, again, why so excessive? Or what, let me ask you a better, maybe a little bit.
Actually, I can, Commissioner Schlegel, I
Okay,
can answer
please.
this. I spoke with the city attorney about this. The size of the city right-of-way, you have to consider from, the left side of the right-of-way all the way to the right side of the right-of-way on the other side of the street. That's a normal size. The street itself is not perfectly centered within our city property. So that's what we're talking about. When the street was put in, it was shifted over. So one side is bigger and the other side is smaller. So one side is 21 feet, the other side is 10 feet.
So the plat shows the standard 66-foot right-of-way. But my understanding is that the road is not in the middle of that right-of-way. It's within it, but not in the middle.
So the road was built on city property, but there's not necessarily an obligation to exactly center it upon city property. This isn't necessarily the most common occurrence, but it's not unique either.
But the larger percentage of our city runs by, I'm going to say, I see what you're saying by side, but off the center line. If I'm in South Marquette and I want to put a fence up and I have to come in 13 feet off the, or if it's 26 feet, whatever, it should be pretty safe for me to say that I can go 13 feet in, so long as I'm.
Most of the time, the center line of the right-of-way is going to be a lot closer to the center of the street than this. That's true, yeah. And this is one of the larger, right-of-way in the front of the house on this side of the street. This is a very large right-of-way for sure, 21 feet.
I mean, if it was anywhere else in town, I'd be saying tough luck. You're in the right of way. But the way that the street is constructed, and I'm a staunch advocate for by the book. Okay, this is a little bit. This is where my little hair up here starts to tingle and says, "Wait a minute, Paul. Is there some sort of extra that we need to consider here?" So, I'm dragging it out because I don't know. I don't want this to come to a vote yet. I'm having a hard time.
Can I move over to Commissioner Mayor?
Please.
Thank you. Okay, so Sean, I'm gonna pull you back into this here. I don't expect you necessarily to tell me why the road is not centered like it normally would be, because I don't expect you to know that. But if I'm understanding you correctly, if hypothetically it was, the curb would just be closer to this retaining wall, right? Is that how you're explaining that? That it's off like that?
No, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so our city-owned property would be the same regardless. It just, if we had built the street with the center line of the street directly down the middle of our right-of-way, it would be, the curb would be closer to the retaining wall. That's a correct interpretation.
So essentially, he just got like extra yard in a way. Opposite. Okay. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? This is obviously a very difficult decision for us, as you can tell by the discussion we've had. I tend to agree with Commissioner Larson, and I think he put it pretty well, that had it been requested previously, it would have been denied. Perhaps others have requested and they've been denied. I do worry about setting precedents. During the times that I've been on the commission, I recall a couple times when we have denied things, and it has created some issues for the landowner, in terms of cost and removal of fencing or other things. I think every one of us, I think pretty much all of us have driven by the property, and it's very attractive, it's very nice looking, I understand where it is in the city, but my main concern would be the setting the precedents and those previously that would have requested and have been denied. With that, I wonder, City Attorney, if we should be taking a roll call vote because of the deliberations that have happened?
Yeah, I mean, a roll call vote is not required. However, it might be easier to know what the final vote is if you do it that way.
Okay, all right.
Can we get another reading on the motion?
Yes, I was just going to ask for City Clerk, if you would read the motion so we know for sure what we are voting on.
Mayor Pro Tem Hanley moved to approve the license request and direct the city attorney to draft a license and a memorandum or other document to be recorded at the Register of Deeds.
And it was seconded by Commissioner Mayer. Okay, so would you conduct the roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Larson?
No.
Commissioner Mayer?
No.
Commissioner Ottaway?
No.
Commissioner Slagle?
No.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hanley?
Yes.
And Mayor Davis?
No. The motion is denied 5-2.
Correct.
We will move on to our second public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please step up to the podium. They may not exceed 3 minutes, and please state your name and physical address.
Margaret Brum, 404 East Magnetic Street. I would like to take this opportunity to let people know that the monthly meeting of the Marquette Board of Light and Power is scheduled to take place tomorrow, Tuesday, November 28th, 2023, beginning at 4:30 p.m. The meeting is held in the Board of Light and Power building on Wright Street, which is readily accessible from Wright Street. There are not one but two public comment periods for anyone to come and put on the record any of their comments, questions, or concerns about the current state of anything to do with light and power in the city of Marquette. I just want to take the opportunity to remind people that we only have monthly meetings, not twice a month, and we're always eager to have people come and share their concerns. And number two, beginning this year, I started teaching at Northern. And during one lovely session, I asked Commissioner Ottaway to come to my class and speak to the students, and he was very well received, and it was a positive experience, what they call a win-win. I did get some feedback, however, from other members who sit beyond that table that, why didn't you ask me? And I thought to myself, because I'm an idiot? No, but because I didn't think of it. So now on the record, on camera, on film, I have openings this week on Wednesday and Thursday, and next week on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for any and all of you to join me in the class so that my students have the opportunity to interact with people in the community who have different backgrounds, different experience, different realities with business. I remember Commissioner Ottaway making a really good point with people about how difficult it is to get insurance in the current climate conditions we have, and you could just see the wheels in the students' voices going. So I'm making this offer on the record to all of you. I will also put it in writing, but I just wanted you to know in case I bruised anybody's feelings early in this year, it was not intentional. And of course, we'd welcome Commissioner Ottaway back, but you're all welcome. And in terms of parking, I usually meet people here in the parking lot and drive you up to Northern. I've got a faculty pass, so you don't have to worry about parking online. But anyway, I just want to make sure everyone knew they were invited, and I would appreciate you coming. The students benefit tremendously hearing real-world experiences, and they've just about had enough of me after the entire semester. So thank you very much.
Anyone else for public comment?
Again, my name is William Cook. I live at 2007 Huntington. That's across the street from Andy. And I don't quite understand why you can't, I know things look not quite right, but our whole subdivision is kind of built that way. There's not, I look down the street and garages are built closer to the roadway than what is required. They're not farther away. There's differences all the way up and down the street. And one house in that subdivision now we're talking about, and it's not like the whole city sees that every day. I just can't understand why you can't let this man go through and finish what he was building, and it's not going to affect anybody. And the neighbors on each side of him have indicated that they're fine with it. I can't understand why you can't go forward with that. It just doesn't make sense. If you drive down that street, all of you, you would see the difference. So I just want to say that. Thanks for serving.
Anyone else for public comment?
Matt Ludenberger, 1406 Garfield Ave, City of Marquette. I took a day off of work, and you guys were having your meeting, and the MAPS Public Schools were having their meeting. So I decided to come talk to all my elected officials at one time. So I went to the MAPS to try to discuss their rebranding. I'll get into that in a second, but I also wanted to say thank you for listening or whatever happened, but the road on Norwood has been graded. So I tried to take some friends down that road and show how bad it was whenever things happened, and I got skunked. So thank you for whatever happened. I hope I don't have to make a habit out of it, please. This is a road that needs improvement, and I now understand what everybody was talking about for the last, 30, 40 years when North Marquette didn't have any paved roads. I understand their dilemma. Nonetheless, okay, so about the rebranding of our high school, it's really a rebranding of our community, and this is why I'm kind of concerned it hasn't brought it up to this level of discussion. We haven't had any consulting groups. We haven't had anybody come around and say, what does it mean for you to be a Redman or a Redette? Personally, to me, I didn't go to school here. I have no kids going to school here. I literally just live across the street from it. That's my whole take on it all. But there's a red M. Red isn't my favorite color, but I had to accept the fact that there's my logo or my name or my initials right across the street in bright red. What else could we be? And I mean this in a sense of the red stone that builds St. Peter's Cathedral right across the street, the red stone that made the Iron Works Center right on the inside of town at Carp River. We are the Redmen. I mean, this is our town. This is what we do. This is how we do it. And I had made a point to them at that school that the taconite pellets that float through town, come through the trains every day at 3 a.m, those turn into iron, and iron ore turns into the steel, and we build skyscrapers out of it. We build bridges out of it. That should be something we should admire and be proud of. But what I also said was, how come Presque Isle Park isn't called Chief Cabogan Point? If we're going to be really called racists, I'd like to actually say, no, we're not. We're actually presenting a very valid, respectable way to look at First Nations. Chief Cabogan, he was our logo. He was our mentor, and we decided, hey, wait, we shouldn't put a picture of somebody as our mascot. So we can all be the Redmen, but we should also be proud of it. We should be learning the Algonquin language. We should be knowing what it means to actually have 4 different nations within Marquette County. I don't want to go off on too many tangents. I did want to say thank you for everybody for serving. Thank you for your time here. The Board of Light and Power, open position. I wish you would try to get somebody who has alternative viewpoints on energy. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Anyone else for public comment? Public comment is now closed, and we will move on to comments from the commission, and I am going to start with Commissioner Larson.
I think this was, the toughest conversation we've had, but it was productive. I wish that, moving forward, we do take into, account a variety of viewpoints, on this, but, looking back at how staff laid it out and move forward with it, I feel like, that's one of the reasons why I end up having to vote in that direction. So, thank you.
Commissioner Mayer?
I'm good.
Commissioner Ottaway?
Yeah, a couple things. Ultimately, when we make a decision up here, it should never be something that's held as personal. I know it can probably feel like that to some people. I think that the property itself, as we all looked at it, there was never a question of actually taking a peek at the property and wondering, is this improving on what's there? The issue I think a lot of us had, me included, was looking at this in the order of operations that had happened, and that's the precedent I think that as a city government we wouldn't want to set. But ultimately I hope this is something that all parties can learn from when it comes to just making sure you're doing your due diligence and going through the proper planning channels and making sure that everything is accounted for. Second, I wanted to give a huge props to the Marquette Fire Department. I was able to go take a look at the Van Evera fire that occurred about 7 days ago now, and just for my personal work, and I met with the fire investigators over there. I will say our fire department responded to a very, very, very active fire, and was able to get that thing put out in a very quick amount of time and save the building next to it, which was maybe 5 to 6 feet away, and ultimately could have been up in flames also. A lot of wood fascia and just parts on that. So the fire department should be very much commended on that. One other thing, just for members of the community, as we sit here, COVID, flu numbers are going way up, so please protect yourselves, protect your loved ones. Don't spread the disease if you don't have to. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hanley, or Pro Tem Hanley, my apologies.
I'm good either way.
Commissioner Slagle?
Thank you. I didn't expect to be that engaged tonight on that topic, but I'm glad that we were. I do feel very bad that we weren't able to kind of work around things there. I understand that process and the importance of it. And I hope that there's some easier solution than what's going through my mind to fix that space. But that being said, it was great to be around family and friends during the holiday. I hope that everybody had a great Thanksgiving, and we have a lot to be thankful for here in the community of Marquette. Get out, take advantage of the tree lightings and the parades and everything else that's going on, and don't forget to shop local as much as you can. Spend some time going through the great streets that we have with all these beautiful shops. Drop some dimes in the buckets when you see the guys ringing the bells for the Salvation Army. Do good things. People are in need all over, and a little bit goes a long ways. Have a great holiday.
Commissioner Smith?
Thank you. I have 3 things. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for being here in both capacities. I'm excited to see the fish stickers a little bit later on. I appreciate the engagement that you're helping with our youth, because I know that goes a long way for helping them to understand their role in community. Also, similarly, last week I was invited to, many of us were invited, but I was able to attend the Tom Baldini Soapbox Challenge, which is high school youth in the area. I think there were some from Houghton, there were some from Marquette, Negaunee, Gwynn, high school students getting up on a soapbox and talking about an issue that was important to them. And I was able to be a judge in that competition, which is great to see the young minds and the energy they have for challenging issues. As we know, we've faced some here today, but it's good to see that energy coming through, even the topics you don't necessarily want to talk about, but especially because it honors late Tom Baldini, who passed 6 years ago in a few weeks from now. So thinking about him this time of the year and all that he did for Marquette as former mayor and someone who did a lot of work in Marquette. And then lastly, I just wanted to kind of give a reminder for folks that it's still hunting season. I don't know at what point it changes from rifle to muzzle loader. Someone's going to correct me as soon as I get off there. It's already happening. Doesn't matter because safety is the important thing here. I've already heard of a few interactions, not in the city of Marquette, because in the city there's no hunting, but right outside in like Marquette Township on the biking trails. Wear orange if you're hiking or biking. Try not to go at dawn or dusk, and try to know where you're going and make sure that it's an area so that you don't have a hiker or biker and hunter interaction. The hunters are out there being as safe as they can, but they need minimal interruptions to make sure. So just an awareness. I notice it especially with, maybe new people in town who aren't aware that that is even a concern, and they just go out at, dawn for a bike ride, and it could be a concern. So I want to make sure everyone stays safe, wear some bright colors, and be looking for some tips out on the interwebs. Thanks.
I'll just thank the commissioners for giving so much thought to the issue that we deliberated on quite a bit tonight. And, we're here to represent the citizens, but we're here to represent the citizens in the greater capacity and to set the rules and regulations for the good of the whole community. It's tough when it comes to be personal, and I think we all felt how hard that was tonight. And thank you for giving it such difficult and thoughtful thinking. And with that, I'll pass it over to the city manager.
Just a quick shout out and a token of appreciation for our police, fire department, and public works department that had to come in and work on a holiday and do come in on holidays and are here rain or shine. So it's an important part of our community, and it was really great to see that our community actually did take care of those that were working and did drop off some goodies to the various departments. So again, we cannot say thank you enough for making our city go round. So that's all. Thank you.
Sorry, the meeting is closed at 8:11 p.m.